Alright, I have 35 pounds of blueberries left. Now let's learn how to make almond blueberry scones. So what you need for this recipe is flour, blueberries, sugar, buttermilk right here, some buttermilk for reserve, a little bit of flour for reserve for dusting, some almond flour, you also need some baking powder, vanilla extract, and almond extract as well. I also have a 1/4 cup of crushed almonds that I crushed by myself. And in the fridge, I also have a stick of cubed butter that I want to keep extremely cold. Alright, thank you so much for coming back. For this recipe, you need flour, blueberries, sugar, buttermilk for reserve, and buttermilk to put into the dough, flour for reserve, almond flour right here, baking powder, and vanilla extract and almond extract as well. I also have some crushed almonds, and in my refrigerator, I have a cubed stick of really cold butter because I don't want the butter to melt in my environment. Oh, and don't forget your egg. Alright, now let's get baking. Okay, so for your first step, you want to add your baking powder in. Ooh, really dusty. Some sugar, and almond flour in. Alright, now you want to mix in your dry ingredients well. People often underestimate how long it takes to mix in your dry ingredients and they mix it all up in 5 seconds. But I would say the good key timestamp to mix it all up would be 1 minute to 3 minutes to make sure that your whole mixture is homogeneous. Alright, so after you mix in your dry mixture for it to be homogeneous, it's time to add in some cold cubed butter. Alright, so what you're doing here is you want to mash in your butter with the flour mixture until it becomes super crumbly and well mixed. Are scones breakfast or are they tea time snack, you know? I'm American, so we don't really have tea time per se, like the English do. Alright, so after you cut your butter into your flour mixture, it should look like this, really crumbly, almost sand-like. There should be little pebbles or pea-sized cubes of butter, and that's completely fine. That adds more texture, more airiness, and more flakiness towards your scones, which is a benefit here. Alright, so I'm gonna remove my flour mixture. And it's time to work on our wet mixture. I know on my recipe list, I do have an exact amount of vanilla, but personally, who bothers to measure vanilla? That's some moronic, crazy, insane psycho thing to do. You know, I personally believe the more vanilla, the better. Alright, and I have some almond extract here. This is really strong, so depending on how much you like almond, you can add more, but if you don't like almond that much, what are you doing? Why are you making this recipe? No, I'm just kidding. You can add less. I usually add hella, because I'm a huge fan of almond flavoring. I feel like the more flavoring, the better. Alright, now I'm going to add in 1 egg. Alright, so now you want to mix it all in. I know normally people don't use buttermilk for scones, they use buttermilk for biscuits. Usually they use heavy cream or half and half for scones. And personally, I chose not to use heavy cream or half and half when developing this recipe because I thought it was just way too much, way too high in fat, way too high in calories. So this is a healthier version, but not really because it still has a lot of sugar into it. But I chose buttermilk instead, mainly because it has more tang to it, more flavor, which I think rounds out the flavor of the scones better. Alright, so my mixture is mixed in completely. Okay, now I'm going to set it aside. Alright, so I have my flour mixture right here. I'm going to add in my blueberries. You can always add a lot more blueberries if you want, but I added 1 cup, so it should be enough. And I'm going to add in my crushed almonds. And finally, I'm going to add in my liquid mixture. Okay, now the key to this is to mix it in really lightly, but so that everything is well combined, homogeneous, and moistened. But you really don't want to pop the blueberries because if you do, you're going to turn or dye your dough blue and it's going to be really weird. The best tool that I find helps the best would be a fork. So now let's just mix it in. I like going in from the sides, but you can go into the middle with a fork or with your hands or whatever instrument or tool you're using. But I just don't really want to pop my blueberries. You can also use frozen blueberries as well, but I'm using fresh because duh, I have 25 pounds of blueberries. Alright, so you can add more flour if you need to, but that is dependent on the humidity of your environment and the moisture available inside your flour. Normally when I make this dough, I don't need to add extra flour, but that's usually because I make it in the super dry time of summer, and right now it's close to fall, so everything is getting more wet. I was gonna say moist, but moist is a weird word. Alright, now that my scone dough has the right consistency, I'm gonna move my bowl out of the way and flour my work surface. Alright, it's super important to flour your work surface because if you don't, your dough's gonna stick on your countertop and it's gonna be a huge mess. And I don't have the time for that. No one has the time for that. Unless you're like a white suburban mom who is a stay-at-home wife and whose husband is making hella money, then yeah, okay. That's a fair reason. You don't have to flour your work surface. Alright, so after your work surface has been floured, it's time to plop on your dough. Okay, now it's time to flour the top of your scone dough. And now it's time to shape into a disc. Okay, so you can shape your dough into like a disc or a square or a triangle, but you want to be able to cut it. So using a bench scraper or a sharp knife, cut it into whatever shapes you want. This is the part where I usually get a lot of stress because like I don't know what shape I want and I don't know which shape fits the best. Normally scones are in like triangular shapes, but also seeing like trapezoid scones that also look really cool. Huh. This is too much thinking! I have 9 scones, but you can always cut into smaller pieces if you want. Now this is going to be a little bit of struggle, but if you believe in yourself, you can do it. It's time to lift your scones out onto a baking sheet. Alright, so I have my baking sheet right here with a sill pad because I'm an ecological king, and you know that is true. Okay, and now you want to place your scones onto your baking sheet about 2 to 3 inches apart. Normally I would say 3 inches apart, but it depends on how big you cut your scones. And you want to space them out evenly and correctly so that like when they rise, they don't smash into each other and become like a huge gigantic scone mess. For maximum efficiency, you really want to flour your bench scraper or your scooper or your spatula or whatever you're using to lift your scone dough shapes into your baking sheet. And it never hurts to always flour your cut out scones again. And if all else fails, that's okay. That's the beauty of baking. It's being unbothered enough to know that after it turns out into a mess, you can still eat it. Unless you burn it and then like, probably don't eat burnt stuff. I don't know, I heard burnt stuff causes cancer. Can't confirm. If that's true though, I should probably already have cancer, huh? Alright, so after you finish cutting and shaping your scone doughs, you want to put it into the refrigerator for 15 to 20 minutes so that the butter in the dough can reharden. That is key to making the best scones ever. Alright, off they go. So now what you want to do is preheat your oven to 400 degrees and take out your scones. Alright, so the refrigeration period for my scones is completely over, and so I dabbed it with some buttermilk that I reserved, which you should also have reserved. It's in the recipe. And when you bake it, the buttermilk will make the scones really glossy after it's done baking. And I also added something super optional, this coarse demerara sugar. Oh, that's the oven. Coarse demerara sugar, because it adds a little bit extra sweetness and it also adds a little crunchy texture. Not that the scones are not already crunchy enough. Alright, so I just heard my oven ring and it's time to bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes. I usually bake for 23 minutes because it's in the middle, but bake it until it's fully cooked. Alright, after they finish baking, I let them cool down for 15 minutes, and let me show you the end product. Look at this, oh my god! Hold on, let me eat it. Let me try it. I mean, I don't have to try, I already ate 3 of them during the 15-minute cool down session, but oh my god. So good! Alright, thank you so much for watching. If you like this recipe video, please like and subscribe. And remember, more recipe videos will be coming out soon. Thank you. Bye! Look at that, wow. Oh my god. Mmm.